This is Dan with Syntax, and today we're going to be going over Git. Now, this is a part one of a two-part video series on Git with us at Syntax. And a quick disclaimer, if you hadn't got a chance to watch our Unix video, please go ahead and do so. It'll make this lesson a little bit easier to understand. Now, first thing, what is Git? Git is a version control tool, or known as a version control system. And what that means is it allows us to track different changes we make to our code. And that's one of the reasons why it's useful. So with Git, we can track the history of our code. We can track the different changes and compare them to older versions of the code. We can even revert some of those changes if we maybe made a mistake or we just don't want that version anymore. Also, we can see who made those changes as well. So this will make a little more sense as we get on with this lesson and as you get more practice utilizing Git. So let's get started, and we're going to go over some Git commands and how to use it. So first things first is we need to open up either our terminal or our command prompt. Now for Windows, you have a command prompt or you have your Git bash. For Mac, we have a terminal. If we go to our search icon and type in terminal, and we can bring that up, and there we go. We have our terminal. Now, first things first, when we use Git is we need to go ahead and configure our email address and configure our username. Now this is almost kind of like an account with Git. Basically, it's more of like an identification. So when you push code or you make any changes, your username, your email will be attached to it, so other people can see who are working on the same project, who made these changes, and how to contact you. All right, so let's go ahead and do so. The first command, what we need to do is called git space config space hyphen global space, we're going to type in user dot then name. Now we're going to do another space here and type in our username. Now when you do this, I suggest you use the same username that you did for GitHub. GitHub is a remote repository, which we'll cover in part 2. So, but please go ahead and use that username. And that's what we're going to do here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and check to make sure that happened. All right. So we're going to do this other command: git config user.name. And there we go. We see here, as it says here, DC Sweeney 11, DC Sweeney 11. All right. Now we need to set up our username. I apologize, our email address. So we're going to say git config space hyphen global space user dot email space, and I also suggest you use the same email address that you use to sign up for your remote repository as well. I'm going to give you just an example here: abc.123@gmail.com. All right. Now let's go ahead and check to make sure that went through. So again, git config space user.email. And there we go. Now what we also can do is make sure everything was done together instead of typing things separately to check up on them. There's also this command: git config space hyphen list. Now we can see here it gives us a list of all of our different Git configuration. Here we have our different credentials and a lot of the stuff you don't need to understand just right yet. But you can see here that we have our username and our email address. All right, so let's go ahead and clear this out. Now, also, as you can see, a lot of these commands start with Git. When we're using Git commands, that's typically, and if not always, going to be the case, is you're going to start with it as Git all lowercase. Now, to make a little more sense of this, we're going to go ahead and create a Java project so you can see kind of how when we make changes and work with it, how it kind of looks and how it works, and it'll make a lot more sense. So let's open up our Eclipse. We're going to create a Java project. I'm going to name it Git Basics. We're going to go ahead and create it. Then I'm going to create a package here. I'm going to say com.learning git.syntax. Okay, and then we're going to create a class. We'll name it test1. Go ahead and have a main method here. And here we go. Now, let's say we'll put a little piece of code here, a little working code. We're going to have a print line here, and we're going to say, learning Git here. All right. We're going to save, and here we go. So now we have a project, and we added some code. Now, let's see how Git works with this. So we're going to bring back out our terminal, and we're going to make sure we navigate to where our project is being stored within our system. And again, this would have made more sense if you watched the Unix video. But let's go ahead and do so. First, we're going to make sure we're in the home directory. And as again, Mac, they give us a little home icon, make it easy for us. Also shows a tilde symbol here, which also means home directory or home folder. We can also type in pwd to make sure, and again, I am in my home directory. Let's clear this out, or we can also change a directory in case we're not, and do cd space tilde symbol. So there we go. Now, we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and like we just did, then we see that we're in our home directory. Okay, so now we're in home directory. We want to go ahead and go into our Eclipse workspace because that's where our project is being stored. So we're going to do cd space Eclipse hyphen workspace. Here we go, pwd, just to make sure, and there we are. Now we're going to do ls, and we can see here we have Git Basics, the project I just created, right? So we're going to go ahead and go inside this project here. So cd space Git Basics. Let's make sure we're here, and yes we are. Okay, so we're going to clear this out so you guys can see a little bit easier. And again, if you guys want to clear out the terminal as I just did, you can type in this keyword here, clear, and it will clear out the terminal. Now, it doesn't start you over from scratch. It just gets rid of the log that was here and gives you something fresh to look at. Okay, so now we're within the project. Now, the first thing we need to do is use a command called git init. It is git space init. And what this means is it wants to initialize this repository, this local repository. And in layman's terms, what that really means is we're saying, hey Git, I want you to start paying attention to this project. I want you to start watching it and tracking things that are changing with it and help me kind of keep an eye on things. Right? We don't need to do this command one time too. So this is the first time we're doing it, and it's the only time we need to do it. So git init, hit enter, and we can see here it says initialized empty Git repository. It means that we didn't have anything here before. But now it's initialized, now it's watching my project here. Okay? So, and as we went ahead and went here, and we made some changes and we have some working code, we want to go ahead and save that, right? So what we need to do is also, we can type in this command, Git Status. Now Git Status will let us know if there are any changes that we didn't save. So let's check. And here we go. Don't worry about this no commits. We're going to get there very, very shortly. But we can see here it says untracked files, and we have all this in the red. Now, what we have here, when we go ahead and add these, it'll make a little bit more sense, but we have bin and source. Basically, one is code, we see here source, one that's code that we understand, and one that's code the computer understands. Not a big deal, but they're basically the same information, just different readable content. But as we see here, it's untracked, and then this color will be red. So I want to start tracking these files. I want to start paying attention to them. I want to keep track of them. So what we can do is we can add them. And there's a command called git add. Now there's two ways we can add. We can either add one by one individually or add them all at one time. So we're going to show you both ways. So if you want to add one individually, it's the command git space add, have another space here, and we're going to type in exactly what we want to add. So for me, I'll type in class path. There we go. So let's go ahead and check status again. Git status. Now we can see here, it was a brand new file. It's something that it hadn't been saved before. Brand new project, new file to Git. Now it's keeping track of it. It added it. Now it's watching it. But we can still see here that it is no longer untracked, right? So we have all these that we want to track, right? We want to start paying attention to them. We want Git to watch any changes with them. So we're going to add all of them. And the other way to do that is git space add space dot. And that dot means all. So basically I'm saying, Git, I want you to add all these untracked files and start tracking them, start paying attention to them, and start watching their history. There we go. Now we can check to make sure everything was added or make sure that there's nothing that isn't being tracked by, again, stating git space status. And we can see here, now everything's in green. Everything is being tracked. And these are the first time, and you can see here, it's a new file. Okay? So now we have everything here. Now, I have everything. It's kind of in a staging area, so to speak. Now, I really want this stuff. I know this is exactly what I want. I don't want to get rid of this stuff, so I'm going to commit this, okay? I'm going to commit this to our local repository. And how I do so is by this command. Git space commit space, a little hyphen here, the letter M lowercase, space, and we're going to have double quotations here. I'm opening it here, and basically we just write a message. Typically, you could write something like your first commit, or you are working on something in particular. So when you write these messages, tend to have a meaning with it. So when other people see it, they know exactly what you did and what you were working on and what you changed. It just kind of helps the person behind you out a little bit. All right. So for me, I'm just going to write in first commit. There we go. Now we can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We have 5 files that were changed, and now it has been committed, okay? So let's go ahead and let's clear this out so we can see a little easier. Now we're going to do git status again, just to make sure everything was good. And we can see here, nothing to commit, right? Working tree clean. Now don't worry about this branch master. That's going to go over a little bit when we go over our part 2 with our remote repositories, and we'll talk about branches briefly. But we can see here there's not more to commit. Our working tree, which means that everything we have over here has been accounted for. Okay. Now we can also watch our logs. We can look at them, right? So there's this command called git log. Now this is showing us all of our commits. And this is our very first commit. It even shows the message that I wrote here. It shows my username, right, what we put here, and also my email address and the date and time in which I made my commit, so people know when I worked on it. Okay. Now again, this head and master, that has to do with the branch. Don't worry about that. But this is the commit, and this is the commit ID. Now, every commit has its very special ID number. It's very long. I believe it's 40-something characters, if I'm not mistaken. But it has this long ID. Now, it's very unique, and no matter how many commits we do, each and every commit will have its own commit ID. Okay, so we're gonna get back to that, and we're gonna show you how that plays with Git here in a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a change to our project, and let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and add another line. Making a change. Okay, we have another line of code here, and you know what? Let's even create just an empty class. We'll do that. Why not? Test 2. Here we go. Okay, let's save. So now we had made a change. You know what? It'd be actually better if I do that later. I'll show you why that's important later. So we just made a change to an existing class. Let's go back over here. Let's do clear. Let's do Git Status. Here we go. Now you see here how it says modified? That's letting me know that something that is already been kept track of, it's not new, it has been modified. And it lets me know exactly what I had changed, right? Not exactly what I changed, but where I changed it, okay? If you want to show what changed, that's a different thing when we compare different versions, but we're getting to that later. So as we see here that I have a change, it's being untracked, and now I want to go ahead and track that change. So again, we have to add it. So I'm going to do git add all And there we go. Now I have it. Let's say Git Status, just to be sure. There it is, right, in green. Now let's go ahead and create a new class like I did earlier. We'll call it test2. I want to do this separately so you guys can see the difference when it says modified versus new. So this is brand new. And again, we'll do Git Status. And you can see here, it's showing me, actually let me clear this out so it's a little bit easier to read. So we'll do Git Status. We can see here that's showing me the modified, and it's showing me something else that's untracked, right? So we're going to add it. Now we added it, I cleared it out so it's easy to read, and then I have status again just to show you how things are being stored here, or it's being in its little staging area. Now we can see here the two files that I modified and also brand new files. So when you have something that's already being tracked and you make a change, it'll show the modified. When you create something new that was never tracked before, it'll show a new file. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit this change. And again, the command is git commit -m, and we'll say second commit as our message. And there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4 files and 4 files. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's check out our log. Now we see here the two commits, right? We see here is my first commit and here is my second commit. Okay. So now here's the thing. Let's say I made this change. I don't want it. I kind of screwed up. I don't want it anymore. I want to go back to my older version. So this is the older version. So I said, you know what, Git, I don't want you to pay attention to this anymore. We don't need it. We want to pay attention to this one. We want to go back to this. And how we do so is by this command. We're going to do Git Reset space hard space, and then we're going to copy about the first 7 to 8 of these characters here. You don't need the whole thing, just about the first 7 to 8 is good enough. Let's copy. Alright, let's paste, enter, and here we go. Now let's go ahead and clear. You can see here it says head is now at my commit here, my first commit. So let's go ahead and clear this out so I can show you. Let's go to git log, and you can see I have only my first commit here. And just to show you here, let's go ahead and refresh this project. Now you saw that what I had in my first commit is here, but my change to my test1 class and my additional test2 class are completely gone. Git said you don't want it. There we go. We don't need it, and it got rid of it for me. Now let's say I made a mistake again, and I want to get those changes back. We could do that too. So instead of using git log, what we can do is do git space, it's called ref log. And here we go. It's showing me that I have my first commit, my second commit, and now we went back to my first commit. So I want my second commit here. See here, second commit. So I'm going to copy this commit ID, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same code we did before, the same command. Git reset space hard space, and we're going to paste here. And there we go. Now we're watching our second commit. So let's go ahead and let's clear, and then we'll show you our git log. There we go. We have both of our commits back. Now let's go to our project. Let's be doubly sure. And there it is. Our second commit changes here, and our second test2 class is here as well. Okay. So one last thing I want to show you is, let's say I need help with Git. Git has some helpful tools. What we can do is type in the commands git space help, Now, this is let me know. It has a bunch of things it'll show you. So you can read through this literature here. Pretty much everything we need to know. Now, if you need to know something in particular with Git, we could type in Git. Let's clear this out so it's easier to read. Let's say I need help with commits in particular. So I'll type in Git Help Commit. And then it'll bring me here to a section all about commits. Let me know what I need to know. Now again, if this is hard to read or this isn't helpful to you, we always stress that Google is your best friend. Do some research on your own, and that should be able to help you out as well. So guys, that was it. That was the first lesson on Git. Stay tuned for Git Part 2, and happy coding, guys.